So we're going to open today with a session from our friends at LinkedIn. We all use LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is a company that actually sort of in an interesting position because they actually evolve they are evolving as the workforce evolves, the kinds of products they provide. The workforce is always changing, what people consume is changing, how they access information is changing. They're at the very front end of that, and they have a tremendous amount of data about what people think and are looking at. I know many of you are clients of LinkedIn, but we're really happy to have them present the changing workforce and to help give you some of that intelligence around what they're learning through the data that they have. I'd like to welcome Brad Miller, who's the Global Account Manager for LinkedIn, and Kelly Gaffney, who is the head of their RPO Program Management team. Kelly and Brad, welcome.
Good morning. I don't know, 4,000 plus ounces of Guinness sounds impressive to me, but I'm just impressed that people were here relatively on time this morning. I thought we'd have about 4 people that we'd share breakfast with and just sit at a table. So thank you all for coming this morning. So my name is Brad Miller and Kelly Gaffney, and we'll introduce ourselves in a second, but I wanted to just briefly give you kind of some expectations of what we hope you'll get out of this morning. So we're going to share some of the things that our CEO shared at our recent Talent Connect event, which is our global event where we bring all of our customers together and talk about the trends and changes we see in the global workforce. And then also some of the ways that LinkedIn and our new owners, Microsoft, are trying to address and kind of marry our two organizations, which should have some positive effects for you either as members or also as some of our customers. So I'm a global account manager at LinkedIn. I work with some of our Fortune 100 companies and then also some of our largest global RPOs. I've been doing this for about 14 years. I was a career builder for 10 of those. And at Salesforce, and then now at LinkedIn. And so what I've seen in the 14 years that I've been working with the talent acquisition folks has been some interesting changes. And somebody made a comment last night about how will we continue to evolve as the workforce changes and as our competitor set changes and those sorts of things. And I think LinkedIn, what we'll share with you today, is positioning ourselves to be able to keep up with the changing workforce we're going to see in the near future.
Awesome. Hi everyone, my name is Kelly Gaffney. My title says Program Manager, and that's because I am one of the founding members of the RPO team at LinkedIn. It's a pretty new team, only been around for 3 years, but to Brad's point of LinkedIn keeping up with the changing workforce, we know that RPO is going to be a staple as companies grow and they need help hiring. So LinkedIn is wanting to support our partners in that. So I've been at the company for 5.5 years now. And today we are going to talk about the role of LinkedIn for a changing workforce. And again, this is based off of a presentation that our CEO, Jeff Weiner, gave at Talent Connect. But when it comes to LinkedIn and how we're thinking about the changing workforce, we believe that there are really 3 themes worth calling out. And those 3 themes are AI and automation. I know that we were talking about that a lot yesterday. I heard people talking about that over Guinness, the rise of robots and how that's going to affect the recruiting landscape. Also the skills gap that's happening in the US and also globally. And then the third big thing within the changing workforce is the rise of independent work. And so when it comes to automation, I think that a lot of people are worried about the future implication of AI and automation. But actually based off of the McKinsey Global Institute, we're seeing that based off just today's technology, what's existing right now, that over 51% of jobs are susceptible to AI and automation. And so that's just today. And so we're not necessarily saying that jobs are going to be taken away or created, but we are saying that there is a big debate going on. And we are saying that we need to be thinking about how we're going to train our collective workforces to be ready for these changes in jobs. Middle skill industries like manufacturing, hospitality, food service, retail, trade, those are the ones that are going to be impacted first. An example that's happening in the US right now, has anyone dined at Shake Shack? Oh yeah, great burger place if you ever get a chance to go, but they actually announced in the US last month that they're going to be replacing all cashiers, and they're replacing them with kiosks. So you just go up, take your order, swipe your credit card, and there's going to be no more cashiers at Shake Shack. So that's just an example that we're seeing right now in the US. And then, it seems like every day there's another headline that's coming up that AI is going to affect accounting, banking, the legal profession. So again, it's an active debate, whether you're going to is it going to replace, is it going to take away? But what we do know is that we need to understand this trend better, use data to understand this trend better, and then train our collective workforces to prepare for not only the jobs that were, but the jobs that will be because of this technology.
And we also thought it would be fun to walk back and forth on the stage and hand each other this, just to keep it live. Next time I'll do a cartwheel. But so when we talk about the skills gap can mean a number of things. And the way that our CEO, Jeff Weiner, talks through it is if you think about the amount of people, and this is in the US, so there's 6 million open jobs, so 6 million open positions in the US, 7 million unemployed people, and when you add in the underemployed or those who are looking for extra work or kind of coming off the sidelines of being unemployed and want to get back in the workforce, the number's closer to 14 million. And so when you look at that, you kind of think, how could that possibly be that there's so many more people that are unemployed and seeking employment than there are jobs? And we don't think that there's a singular reason of why there's a skills gap. We think actually there's many skills gaps. So there's many lacks of either supply and demand for folks that have certain skills in certain markets at certain times. And when we take a look at the US overall, and we should caveat this with, while some of this data is US focused, the trends that we see in the workforce in the US are often shortly seen thereafter in EMEA and APAC, and that's how we would message that to our customers, and also some of the data we'll show you later is global. But like Detroit, for instance, I work with a number of manufacturing companies like Ford and GM who now have to make a much smarter car than they've had to make in the past. So when you go onto a manufacturing floor at GM, it's no longer some people putting parts together and then you've got a mechanical and electrical engineer. Now you have a software developer walking with that team. You've got software quality engineers. You've got more quality assurance people that have to make sure that the software that we will demand and rely on is effectively put in the manufacturing process. So Detroit's seeing a big shortage in software quality at the moment. There's a big shortage of law enforcement in Washington, D.C., and some parts of America would tell you maybe that's because of our resident in the White House. I don't know. But either way, there's a shortage there in D.C. And then for the folks in this room, in the Bay Area where we reside as a corporation, as do many, there's a big shortage in HR and recruiting because as tech hiring has risen so greatly, we're having trouble keeping up with staffing our HR and recruiting teams. So wherever you look at US or globally, we really think there's kind of three things that are contributing to the skills gaps that exist in the workforce today. One would be low supply, so just not enough people in that market that maintain the skills required. Two would be lack of mobility. So we've seen the least amount of mobility for jobs in the US since World War II. People are not moving for opportunities like they used to. They're buckling down and staying where they are, which means they'll have to reskill and re-educate. And then the third could be information asymmetry. So there's people with those skills in those markets, they just don't know the opportunities exist, and that would be where this audience would educate the workforce. So what we're going to show you today towards where we're moving as an organization with our talent insights and our data, and really taking the data we've been sitting on really for 12 years and kind of putting it in an actionable format for you, should help address this, which is how do we get the right people with the right skills in the right place at the right time, which is how all of you and all of our RPO partners are working towards.
So the third trend that we are seeing in the global workforce that we want to address today is the rise of independent work and independent workers. And the way that we'll define that for purposes of today are individuals who are freelancers, short-term contractors, or participating in the gig economy. So right now we're seeing, and again, this is US data, but right now we're seeing that there are around 60 million people that fit into those three categories. And by some estimates, it's even as high as 90 million. And so, the question for all of us and for all of you in the room is why is this number so high? What's driving that? And we believe that there are three reasons that we're seeing this rise in independent work. One would be the rise of millennials, so people aged 18 to 34 that are really looking for more autonomy. They want greater flexibility in their jobs. They don't want to be in an office all day. And the phrase that we're using in the States is that they want a good side hustle that Jeff was joking about. But this is an important trend to keep tabs on, because by 2025, about 75% of the workforce is going to be millennials. So if we're not understanding what they want in a job and how they want to be hired and what makes them tick, it's going to be hard for us to attract and attain this talent. The second would be the growth of online marketplaces. So things like Airbnb, Lyft, Uber, these are companies that all they do is hire these independent workers. And actually that 60 million number, only 15% are currently employed by these online marketplaces. So certainly a trend to keep on top of, because that number is only going to rise as these online marketplaces grow as well. And then the third would be cost effectiveness. So companies actually like hiring contractors. It gives them more flexibility within their workforce. And so all we're saying here is that this is a trend that's not going to be reversed. It's a trend that's here to stay. It's a trend that we need to make sure that we're all educated on, again, through the use of data, so that we're knowing where to identify these individuals, how to track them, and how to keep them happy when they're at your company.
All right, I rethought the cartwheel. I can't do it. All right, so in the sessions that we attended yesterday, we saw a number of these terms brought up, as well as innovation and automation and AI. And while I think the debate is there that it exists and a few different sides of the debate, is it going to kill jobs, is it going to create jobs, is it going to have a net neutral effect on jobs? Regardless, is what LinkedIn is working towards when we come back to our mission statement is to make, connect the world's professionals and make them more productive and successful. We were acquired last year by Microsoft. And so our two suitors were Microsoft and Salesforce. And I just come from Salesforce, which would have been awkward, so I'm glad that Microsoft purchased us. But our mission statements are very similar as a company, and we actually get an opportunity to hear from Satya Nadella and Jeff Weiner together. And when you hear the two of them talk, they're talking about moving towards the same thing, but doing it in very different ways, where Microsoft is doing it through software innovation, their cloud business, connecting business professionals, and LinkedIn is working more towards the networking aspect of it and our social experience. But what's interesting is that LinkedIn is, and I'll show you a slide here in a second that's going to show that we have 530 million members. These slides are really hard to keep up to date. We add 4 members a second globally as a platform, but in some of our hypergrowth markets in APAC or EMEA, it's closer to 8 members a second. And so we're close to 600 million members today. Microsoft wants us at 1 billion members by the end of 2019. So that growth is going to come from a couple of areas. It'll come from our international and global expansion, but a lot of that growth is actually going to come from the place that we don't really play in today, which is kind of the high-performing individual contributor on down. Historically, LinkedIn, if you look at the members that we have and everyone in this room, is either a high-performing individual contributor, manager, director, VP, senior-level individual, and we're not really playing in the space today that would be in the contractor space, the blue-collar type roles. Microsoft is going to help us address that market. You're going to see a lot more marriage between the Microsoft Office suite and LinkedIn. So for instance, like if you're in Recruiter, you're going to now be able to send direct emails through Outlook, schedule with candidates in your calendar. And you'll see some of that at the turn of the year. Additionally, the growth that we'll see as a platform from Microsoft will come from their suite. So every time you open up a Word document, there's over 10,000 Word templates downloaded every week, which is a stat I was surprised to hear. There'll be LinkedIn widgets for you to be able to go in and actually create a LinkedIn profile directly from Microsoft Word, and that's going to help to grow the network quicker. So we have something that we call the economic graph. The economic graph at its core is kind of how we take the LinkedIn network to market and how we make our members and our organizations work more collaboratively. So we do it through a couple of ways. One is the jobs that are represented on LinkedIn. So we want every opportunity in the world on LinkedIn and every person in the global workforce there, and then we just connect the two. We're partnered with a number of schools, and so we partner with almost 30,000 schools. And what I thought was interesting last year is we lowered the age of LinkedIn from 18 to 14. And the reason that we did that is that we want these kids who are now coming into high school, into college, starting to think about how they're going to plan out their life. Is Roman philosophy a good thing to major in? Maybe not. Maybe we can go back and look at what does it look like if I go into nursing or IT or finance. What should my career look like for the first 8 to 10 years? Can you tell me what I should be making? What types of companies am I likely to work for? And we have all this data. We have salary information. We have workforce migration, a number of different things that can tell us or tell an individual this is what you should expect for your career in this particular field. And so where I used to, when I was in college, you go into the Career Center, and they had some typewriters and computers, and you go in and you would look up some things that you could find on the internet about the major that you were in. Well, now if you went into a college career center, it's actually laptops with LinkedIn on it, where they can go in and they can leverage lynda.com, which is a company of ours, to kind of plan out their future. So we're taking a very hard look at how we address the millennial organization and the following generation, getting them into the workforce effectively. Who's you?
It's me. So the question is, how do we scale this ecosystem? How do we continue to add more members to our network? How do we add more companies, schools, et cetera? And that starts with the investment that we make in our platform, because ultimately, if our members aren't engaged, then it's not a value add to all of you in the room. And so we take that really seriously. Jeff has now taken over, he did take over product for a while to make sure that we really double down on our investment on the mobile experience and also on desktop. And so over the last 2 years, we've really overhauled both the desktop experience as well as the mobile experience so that they work better together. And ultimately what that's doing is creating more engagement for our members. It's bringing people back to the network on a more regular basis. And all of this is coming together so that we're now seeing record levels of engagement on the site, record levels of traffic. We're expected to hit over 21 billion sessions this year. And for the folks in the room that are interested in when's the best time to get after a candidate, the highest levels of traffic that we see on LinkedIn are actually the end of the year, December and then into January. If you think about that, people are waiting for their bonus check that comes in January, and then once they get that, they're gonna take off on the next opportunity. So really high levels of engagement, and just another little anecdote that, tell your recruiters, make sure that they're on LinkedIn at this part of the year, because the response rates are the highest. One of the specific areas where we are seeing great levels of engagement are with jobs.
Yeah, so if you think about, like, we're not a job board. Like, we're not Indeed, we're not Career Builder, but we certainly do have job board-esque type offerings and solutions. So our Talent Solutions group is focused around a couple of core things, from your career page and your branding, and then also the jobs of how we connect our members to your opportunities. And so LinkedIn at its core is really a collection of algorithms, and the idea is to match the perfect member to the perfect job at the right time, versus a job board or an advertising venue where you've got just a lot of jobs and things and people are looking and searching. So in addition to the mobile improvements that we made to our jobs, we've also highlighted the active jobs tab. So this is for us to go after the audience I talked about earlier that we don't really go after today, which is the active candidate. So historically, LinkedIn would be everyone in this room, gainfully employed, somebody who would maybe be open to an opportunity but is not actively pursuing it. We've now also improved the mobile experience for those who are likely to come to us mobily versus a laptop, that don't have office positions, that are out in the field somewhere or in a blue collar or manufacturing type role. Since we've done that, I've seen a 70% increase in unique job visitors year over year, and it was about 40% the year prior, which is good. What I think is really cool is, especially for anybody who is maybe in like their first to second to third job, is that we've put a career section within the job section for those folks to actually engage senior members on LinkedIn for mentorship and mentor match. Some of you might have received an email from LinkedIn to offer for you to join the mentor match program. If you haven't, you probably will in the near future. And the idea would be to connect people in industries that don't work together, that don't know each other, that aren't connected, to set up a potential mentor opportunity, which should be good for both parties, and then also some career advice for those who are looking to, again, where should I be going in my role?
So another example of where we're really doubling down our investment to make sure, again, that our members are engaged and they keep coming back for more because it's creating value for our members, is the feed. So how many of you have the mobile app, and as you're going home from work, kind of scroll through the feed and look through the content that LinkedIn has? Great. That's definitely an area that we have really doubled down on to make sure that we're pushing out relevant content to you based off of your profile. So, what you're putting in your profile is directly correlated with what you're seeing in your feed. And again, all that's doing is pushing that relevancy so that you're coming back to get more. One of the latest updates that we've done is storylines. So our editors and our data scientists are working together to create these editorially curated packages that are highly relevant for professionals like you all in the room. And so these storylines are running through the feed on a daily basis. And if you're doing your day job in meetings and you're not on LinkedIn all day, what we're able to do is actually push out these notifications through push notification or also email, again with the goal of bringing people back onto the platform, creating more engagement, more value for you all. Another example of this would be video. So now, I don't know if you've noticed through your feed, but people can post videos. And it's not just the professionals that are posting videos on LinkedIn, it's the blue collar worker, the white collar worker, even universities are posting videos on LinkedIn as well. So the net result of all of these innovations in our feed and the increase in relevancy that we're pushing to our members is that we're seeing that there's a 60% increase in updates viewed year over year. If you're an organization that hasn't really looked closely at using the feed to push out sponsored content, that is our #1 most successful offering right now because of how highly targeted we can get in putting that relevant content in the feeds of the people that you care about.
Yep, so we have over 190 billion updates that are viewed every year on LinkedIn, which is a lot. The second most popular activity on LinkedIn is messaging or in-mailing or viewing a profile. So our in-mails historically have been very boring and kind of cumbersome and not a great system to use. So you should see now in your LinkedIn, whether you're on our flagship app, on your laptop, or on the mobile, you'll see improved parts of the messaging where we've got kind of an overlay for you to see who you've got open conversations with, who you want to start a conversation with, and then also, more importantly, who's actively on LinkedIn today. So this should look a little familiar to you from maybe another site that you use. But this is, the idea here is to connect people, again, at the right time with the right person and have more of an active conversation on LinkedIn. The thing that I like the most is being able to reply to somebody quickly if it's something that maybe it's just like an irrelevant email that you receive, or if it's somebody who you just can't get to right now. We've got some conversation starters with you, so you don't have to sit there and think, like, how do I respond to this person appropriately? LinkedIn's taking care of some of that for you. So most importantly for this room, what all of this has done has increased the in-mail acceptance rate on our site almost 45%, which is great because that means that all the things that you're investing with us and work that your teams are doing is more effective and is reaching a more receptive audience.
Awesome. So Brad and I just went through a ton of innovation that LinkedIn has gone through, our increased investment, increased engagement that we've seen on the site. Again, record levels of engagement. And so what all this is doing is it's creating a ton of data that's flowing through the system, rich data, valuable data, the data that you all are asking us for day in and day out. I have clients every day that say you're sitting on a pile of data that we just love to get our hands on. An example of how we're using this data is within our workforce report. So every month LinkedIn is sending out a workforce report calling out the key workforce trends that we're seeing across the globe. And we're getting a ton of pickup on this. Jeff Weiner, our CEO, presents on this workforce report every month, as Dan Roth does, our editor. And it's not just in the US that this workforce report is relevant or that it's being brought up as something that's valuable that companies are using. We've also got organizations like the World Bank and the World Economic Forum that are saying that this data is valuable to their workforce strategies.
So we thought it would be fun if we could go back and forth and make this as dramatic as possible, but this is kind of the lead up to the punchline of what we're doing about it. So imagine a world. I'm just kidding, it's like the movie announcement. Imagine a world, you want to keep going, Kel, with the clicker?
Oh, yeah.
Imagine a world in which you could take a look at your organization and all of your employees on LinkedIn and immediately identify the fastest growing skills in your company. And a great example of this is Koch Industries, which is a customer of mine. The Koch brothers, they have so many decentralized business units and companies within that organization that oftentimes somebody in Georgia Pacific is answering an RFP that somebody at Molex has already done before, and there's no way for them to connect them internally. There's no way to know that somebody in Molex has that exact skill set that they need for somebody in Georgia Pacific. And so what you're able to do with LinkedIn in our data insights, which we'll show you in a second, on your company, is to take a look at your talent that exists in your organization and match those people up to save yourself some time and effort.
One of the biggest questions that we get asked as well is, how do we stack up against our competition? So in our Imagine a World statement.
You're supposed to say Imagine a World.
Imagine a World.
Yeah.
Where you're able to understand how the skills at your company are stacking up against those of your competitors.
And then when we take a look at the market that exists, one of the most common questions we get is that, hey, we don't need an answer for all of the opportunities that exist within our company. We really need help with engineering. We really need help in IT. We really need help in finance. And so being able to drill down the skills that exist within your company today, and then also, and actually I'll ask a question too. So have anyone been endorsed or endorsed anyone on LinkedIn? Okay, and have you laughed at some of the endorsements you've possibly gotten from some of your friends or colleagues that were funny? I've gotten some very interesting endorsements for things I've never done. What's really interesting is if you look at the technical fields on LinkedIn, and so I hosted a manufacturing company in our office in San Francisco, and they were having a really hard time hiring engineers and IT professionals because nobody wants to go to this old stodgy manufacturer if you're a young IT professional. And so we had one of our recruiters come in and share just kind of how they go to market and how they compete with Apple and Facebook and Amazon and everybody else we compete with in the Bay Area. And one of the first things he said is, I go to their endorsements and I look at all the skills that they're endorsed for, and I said, really? And I'm the LinkedIn guy, so I wasn't good. I said, really? And he said, yeah, because while you and people in sales may treat this as a joke, actually in IT and engineering and highly technical fields, those skills and endorsements are how we determine, is this person more senior, qualified, not qualified, et cetera. So being able to take a look at the endorsements that your employees have and that your competitors have in comparison is a good way to use the talent insights.
And this goes back to what I was talking about before with the rise of millennials and how they want to work for your company. LinkedIn Talent Insights will be able to help you identify the exact right prospect that you're looking for. Not only that, but you're able to better understand what they're looking to do for your company, whether it be through contract, full-time, part-time, internship.
And you're going to see the biggest thing that we're trying to answer for any of our corporate customers, our staffing customers, our RPO customers, is kind of speed to market. So taking the data that we've been sitting on, again, for like 12 years, putting it in an actionable format that you can then go to your internal customers if you're in a corporate space, or go to your actual customers if you're an RPO or staffing firm servicing an organization, and have a more productive meeting with an intake meeting with a hiring manager, or have a more productive meeting, a QBR, or a business review, or a renewal conversation that you may be having, to be able to take the data that we have and make it actionable.
So, go ahead.
No? So imagine a world. No, just kidding. So this is how we're addressing it. So this is and so again, I work with very large organizations in the corporate space and also in RPO. This is the first thing that we are asked about every time that we walk into a meeting is, one, what's new with Microsoft? And then the second one is, how are you addressing the data shortage that we have from LinkedIn historically, and what are you doing to put it in our hands? And so there's a number of things that are available to you today. There's also some things that will be available in the Q1 and Q2 of next year that is more of a self-service model within our talent insights. But today...
Oh, that's me.
Yeah.
This was our imaginal world, and that we kind of flubbed. That must have been the Guinness. But the big thing that we're excited to announce, and the big announcement at Talent Connect this year was, LinkedIn 8 years ago when we started the Talent Solutions business, we really believe that we disrupted the market by introducing the idea of passive candidate sourcing. Not introducing it, but really helping recruiters go after passive candidates through our recruitment solutions. And so we're really taking a big bet here that we are reimagining the recruitment industry one more time by saying you can recruit smarter, not harder, by using the power of data and insights and really understanding where your talent is, what they want out of you. And so that's the product that is coming to market in 2018 in a self-service platform where your teams will be able to access information on talent pools, information on companies as well, and all this is in real-time data, something that we believe that our competition hasn't been able to do historically.
Yeah, so again, whether the corporate customers, staffing customers, RPO, so I'll give you an example of how one of our customers used this, but it was a manufacturing organization that was looking for site selection and had 7 cities in Latin America identified for a number of business reasons as being appropriate places they could open a plant. And so what they leveraged LinkedIn for was to take a look at what does the talent look like in that market today? What is our employment brand in that market? Will people know who we are? How hard or easy is it going to be for us to attract people there? What's the migration patterns in and out of these cities? So it was interesting because people take data and view it in different ways sometimes. We were trying to show them these are all the cities that are kind of the hidden gems that have big supply and low demand. They actually wanted the reverse. So like, we're looking for the city where everyone's fleeing so that we can come in and kind of be the hero company that pulls everyone back in and employs them locally in that market. And so that's our customers use it in a bunch of different ways, but it's something we get real positive feedback from every time we talk about it.
So when the offering comes out next year, it won't just be on talent pool, but also company insights as well. So it's going to be 2 different platforms that are going to be offered so that you have insights into not only just how your company is doing, but you can also research other companies as well. This is a look at what the specific talent pool screenshot will look like. And again, to give you another example, Wilson HEG, one of our RPO partners, they leverage talent pools when they are advising their clients a lot. And an example would be that they were working with a company in Germany that was looking for sales professionals, and the organization said, we only want sales professionals from enterprise companies. And they're having a really hard time finding these individuals. Well, when we look at the talent pool report, it showed that actually these individuals, only 15% of the talent pool was working for large enterprise companies. So by only concentrating on that population, you're missing out on 85% of really great qualified candidates. So that's the type of conversation that we're really excited for you all to have when you have the data to support why you should be changing your strategy.
So the other thing, the other question we get a lot, especially from the corporate audience, is I want to know who's viewing my employees, who is likely recruiting from my company, who's like a potential risk or threat in a market. And so in Dallas, Texas, for instance, right now, there's a number of different automotive financial companies that are opening up locations in the same city. And in a lot of cases are advertising directly to the other company's employees to come work for them. And so it opens up a kind of an interesting conversation that we haven't had in the past with our customers, is how are you being approached or targeted on LinkedIn? And through this tool, this portal, we're able to show, like, here's what the landscape of your company looks like and who's most connected to you, and maybe that's a recruiting opportunity or a risk, and what can you do about it? All right, so we thought we'd give you about 20 minutes back in your day, but we'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them. Otherwise, what we've shown you today, this is available to you if you're a customer of ours. We'd recommend you reach out to whoever you work with at LinkedIn, and they'd be able to share some more information on what you can do with this right now, and then also share some information on what the future state will be in the turn of the year when it becomes more of a licensure and a self-serve model. Yes, sir. So in a lot of the deliverables that you'll actually get, and I don't know if you can really see this, but we will have, when it comes to employment branding, we're fully disclosing who the organizations are and who you're competing with in that market. But when it comes for specific performance against the competitor, for instance, how are your jobs performing against a competitor? How are your recruiters' effectiveness? We will give you a peer set that are people that are recruiting in the same markets, but we won't tell you who's who. So in other words, we'll show you where you stack out of the top 10. Are you number 4 or number 8? But we won't tell you who's 1, 2, 3, 5, et cetera.
All right, so let me ask you one other quick question. And a lot of what you've talked about is on the more of the sourcing side, but this goes more to the question of retention. There's been a lot of discussion here about retention and engagement and recognition, particularly the millennials. Why aren't you also in the endorsements area offering companies the opportunity to buy like recognition, electronic recognition badges or things like that, so that managers who want to give employees social recognition over a network that becomes public and social, and some of it may be proprietary, that they may not want to reveal certain information, but if you think about pinning a badge to someone's, a manager pinning a badge to someone's profile on LinkedIn, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, so the current state of that, I guess, would be the written endorsement that you would give someone on LinkedIn. And so I worked at Salesforce and was, if you're all Salesforce customers or not, as an employee of Salesforce, they had a very public badging system that they did within Salesforce. If you did something good, you got Aloha points, you got something else. I don't think that's a bad idea for LinkedIn.
The endorsements, though, can be hard to plow through, and you don't necessarily know, if you put a badge on, whether a direct subordinate or whatever, I wouldn't know, what the reporting relationship might be between you and other employees versus having a manager's, great job, quarterly job approval, whatever you want to call it, that they could just pin electronically to someone and have that nice display where you have like the little badges lined up kind of thing. It's just something to think about.
I know a lot of recruiters rely on the recommendation section, the public recommendations that you can give someone that you've worked with or worked for. Reading through those could serve a purpose. It's just more written versus the badge. But yeah, you could use the recommendation section for that.
All right, well, then that's it. Thank you. Have a great day.